Welcome to my latest YouTube video. I'm Rosenberg. I'm the author of The Human Magnet Syndrome and the creator of the Codependency Cure. Many of you may already be familiar with my observe, don't absorb technique. I created it a long time ago. In fact, before I even knew what the name of it was, I created it to survive a relationship with someone who had borderline personality disorder, who was destructive, punitive, and incredibly aggressive. She was able to gain control over me, not just by her aggression, but it was her ability to pull me into an argument, to get me to try to defend myself in a way in which I would lose control of myself. And it was that time, 26 years ago, 26 years ago, I figured out if I can just disassociate from her, if I can just temporarily remove myself emotionally. And, like I had heard previously, in these stories and these news articles about people who disassociate and they look at themselves from above. And if I could just do that and look at myself and see a person interacting with a pathological narcissist, understanding that the pathological narcissist gains all her or his power by inducing a person into a fight and argument. And many of you have already seen my videos, Induced Conversation. And when the narcissist gets you to fight, then you, the SLD, the codependent, the victim, you fight out of anger and rage, as I refer to as false power syndrome. This temporarily adrenaline-filled, reactive, almost not completely rational reaction that you want to not only stand up for yourself, but you want to hurt the person that's hurting you. But as George Bernard Shaw said, don't wrestle with pigs. You'll both get dirty. And besides, the pig likes it. So that saying really gelled with my whole observe, don't absorb ideas, which essentially are, if you can observe the aggressor, the instigator, the pathological narcissist, and watch them try to bring you into the wrestling ring with full knowledge that if you fight back, if you try to defend yourself, if you try to overcome the adversity or the punishment that keeps coming your way, you will fight them in a place which is their wrestling ring, so they get home field advantage, where they are skilled beyond your abilities and where they know every trick, every nasty manipulative trick in order to win. So if someone said to you, hey, Bob, why don't you box with this guy? You can win $15. And you ask, okay, well, $15, how about 50? Man, no, make it 100. So tell me about this guy. Well, he's an amateur boxer with golden gloves and he's trying to make pro. And then you think to yourself, I'm going to get walloped. I'm going to get the heck knocked out of me. And then your friend goes, and he thinks you're a stupid, ugly, dirty Jew. Now, I say that because I'm Jewish. And then if I get mad, I'll say, well, no one's going to call me that. I'm tired of, all this anti-Semitism. I'll take that son of a gun on. And next thing you know, I'm in the ring because I'm angry and I'm going to show him something. And he knocks me out. He beats me up really bad and knocks me out. So you find out that the boxer never said any anti-Semitic comments. He was just looking for someone to spar with just to get ready for his next fight. But the tricky, pathologically narcissistic friend of yours wanted to make money or he wanted to hurt you. So he instigated you. He was able to trigger you or activate your anger, maybe perhaps your unresolved massive amounts of anger that you had for maybe other people that were mean, horrible, or prejudiced. The point of that example is someone wants you to literally get into in this case, the boxing ring. And they know that if they asked you to fight this guy and you're calm, you would say, no way, why would I fight a soon-to-be professional boxer? I'll get my butt kicked in. But if they know that they can get you mad and angry, and they can find that trigger point, that one comment, that one issue that will activate you. And by the way, the activation or the trigger point, and I'm talking about in the case of self-love deficient people or codependents, because you all know by now that is my specialty. It always goes back to your attachment trauma, what happened to you in your childhood, in your family, and how you were either hurt, rendered powerless, manipulated, and other related abuses, trauma, manipulations. And that means there's anger and there's rage sometimes. It's stuffed in because you couldn't ever master the pain or the harm that you endured in your childhood. But as an adult, you have more power. And say you grow into a tall, big guy like me, 6'4", 235 pounds. I lied to you. I just lost 5 pounds in just 1 second. But my point is, narcissists know exactly how to get you into the wrestling ring. They know what button to push. They know how to activate your false power syndrome. And they know how to get you to fight a fight that if they win, they will gain control over you, or they will get something from you that they wouldn't have gotten if you didn't fight them. And observe, don't absorb, which is not the focus of this video, is simply to observe the person that you know is a pathological narcissist, to know that their power manifests by their ability to get you to fight. And the way they get you to fight is to find the button to push, find a way to activate you. So you go into this false power mode, fight them, get your butt kicked, and now you are even further, more deeply victimized than you had been before. So when I talk to my clients, I use this saying, and this is the title of the video. If your partner has a narcissistic injury and you're not around to hear it, does it really matter? This comes from the saying that I use, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? So let's first think about the original saying. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? Now, we all know that it does make a sound, but the point of that saying is to demonstrate that if you don't really care about a tree falling and you're not there, it doesn't impact your life and or affect you in any way. Let's transpose this to someone in my psychotherapy session who is with a pathological narcissist, who is always thinking about, perseverating about what the narcissist is doing, not doing, how they are trying to hurt them, neglect them, abuse them, abandon them, or their kids, or anyone for that matter. These thoughts, these worries, they manifest so much space in their mind so that they are sometimes incapacitated to function and do what they normally should do, whether it be working, being a friend, whether it has to do with being a parent or working, a student or whatever. Their mind is filled with this idea that the narcissist is either out there doing something that is bad, or they're going to find out a way to do something to prevent the narcissist from hurting them. So the concept is, if the tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it really matter? Well, what about if your partner has a narcissistic injury and you're not around to hear it? Does it matter? That is a true observe, don't absorb opportunity. Because if you know that by thinking of your narcissistic partner, wondering if they're going to hurt you, knowing you can't control it, but still letting it occupy your mind and get in the way with things that you need to do, even if it's just relaxing, they are impacting you and they're not there. As I've explained in my other videos, and I talked about my observe and absorb technique, I talked about the physical wrestling ring. So when I talk about the physical wrestling ring, as well as the emotional wrestling ring, this was a big discovery for me because all of my previous focus was on how the narcissist could press those buttons and trigger you in order to fight them. And if you fought them, you were then in their wrestling ring in which you would lose. And then I started to think, what about all the times you are thinking, perseverating, anxious, worried, sad, depressed about the narcissist, yourself, and the relationship, worrying about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. How many of you know someone or yourself that could spend days and days occupied with these thoughts and these emotions and then sometimes do nothing, just be, completely unavailable to your friends, your family, and yourself. That is a definite example of being in the wrestling ring, because a narcissist is hurting you, punishing you, torturing you, because he or she actually knows that once they get into your head, they got you. So whether it's the physical wrestling ring or the emotional wrestling ring, the observed unabsorbed technique teaches a person to understand their adversary. And as I talk about in my other full-length videos, whether it's the observed unabsorbed technique video or the escaping narcissistic abuse video or my latest video series on the 50 Shades of Pathological Narcissism, I explained that the only way that you're going to escape the narcissistic abuse and overcome self-love deficit disorder or codependency is to understand the narcissist as deeply and profoundly as possible, and why and how they are able to trigger, antagonize, or hook you, and understand what it is about you that keeps getting into the wrestling ring and, of course, perpetually losing. So I want to tell you all, I want to say this, and I want you to remember it. And of course, I'm going to read this from my screen. If your partner has a narcissistic injury and you are not around to hear it, does it matter? Let me reframe that according to my observe, don't absorb methods. If your narcissist is angry or trying to hurt you, or him or herself activated has a narcissistic injury, and you don't care, you actually know that that's what happens. It always happens, especially if you stand up to him or her, set a boundary, or you don't respond to them, or you apply my induced conversation methods. The narcissist has no power in the emotional wrestling ring. If your partner has a narcissistic injury and you don't want to know about it, hear about it, or see it, like it never happened, like a tree that falls down in a forest 700 miles from you. You don't hear it because you don't give a darn about it. You don't care. It's some tree, trees fall down, that's life. Hopefully new trees will grow up to replace it. So if you're in therapy, you're working with a qualified coach, or you are working so hard to overcome your self-love deficit disorder, your narcissistically abusive relationship, your predilection to be involved in these relationships, your self-love deficit disorder, your codependency that keeps you via the human magnet syndrome compelled relationship dynamics to stay fighting, perpetually losing in these wrestling rings, then you have to break free. Use my observe, don't absorb technique. Learn it, master it, because it's one of those techniques that keeps getting better and better as time goes on. And then understand the concept of the emotional and the physical wrestling ring, and know that the emotional wrestling ring has hurt you worse. And you realize you have spent hours and hours, days, months having them in your mind, letting them get to you. See, this gets me emotional because I have experienced it, and I have had so many clients almost destroyed by it, letting them get in your mind and having them destroy your opportunity for happiness, destroy your opportunity for self-love, self-caring, self-respect. So I tell you, once again, if a narcissist has a narcissistic injury and you're not around to hear it, does it really matter? No. That's what you have to do. Get there, and it won't be easy. I have so many resources at my Self-Love Recovery Institute that will help you understand the problem and will help you start what I call my Codependency Cure or Self-Love Recovery Treatment Program. Please don't stop believing in my favorite quote by another George. This is George Eliot. It's never too late to be the person you should have been. So with that, I say, don't stop believing in the possibility of self-love. Because if you've been following me, you know, and I know I'm different from 90% of the other videos on codependency and narcissism. I, of course, validate the horrendous impact of narcissistic abuse. I validate how mean and nasty these pathological narcissists are. But what I say over and over again, you can jump on that bandwagon and say these guys are terrible and they're horrible, and learn as much as you can. Read books and books, my book even. It will not stop the human magnet syndrome driven compulsion or attraction pattern that brings you to a narcissist, bonds you to a narcissist, and then entraps you with the narcissist. And my friend, and I say this with compassion and empathy, we only can get better when we take responsibility for our part of the dysfunctional dance. This does not mean it's your fault, but you carry responsibility. And if you can accept that simple concept, then you can solve the problem. Because anger, resentment, fighting back, it doesn't work if you're an SLD. What works is knowing that there is a tree out there that you are far, far away from. And when it falls, you just don't give a darn. So with that, I wish you all the very best. I hope that you consider the material in this video because I really believe it can help you. And if you're interested in more of my material, especially my 3-day series on the 50 Shades of Narcissism, it's a 3-series seminar that eventually will be on video. And each series is 6 hours. The first one breaks down in exquisite detail that has never been offered about what is a narcissist, what is a narcissistic abuse, and what makes them as pathological and harmful, and sometimes exquisitely beautiful and desirable. The next one is, what is narcissistic abuse? Why do SLDs or codependents always fall victim to narcissistic abuse? What do the narcissists do, and how do they do it to pull in the SLD, the codependent, and trap them? Gaslighting, manipulation, all the stuff they talk about. And the third one is the material that people have been waiting for. It is my Codependency Cure material of what to do, how to do it, and a collection of all the techniques and strategies I've created over the years. So be well, take care, and don't forget, it's never too late. Bye-bye.